Good evening. I'll now call the City Council meeting for Monday, April the 4th to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Gallops is absent. Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mattson is absent. Schoblum.
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
Yep. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the City Council as we changed it because of some scheduling conflicts with some of the council members. So we wanted to make sure we got this meeting in. This time, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion by Merle, second by Rod. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. This time we'll move on to item 5 this evening, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. I'm John Eltoff. I live at 100 East Colville Street. And I'm on the agenda for something else down the line, but as long as I'm here, I have another issue that came up in December. We live up on top of the hill by the water tower at 100 East Colville. We had a problem December 17th. Our sewer backed up there. And to find out, the problem was in the line that ran down to Colville Street to the main. It was plugged with roots, and I called Tom. He was on the scene immediately, and we found out we had roots from the Colville main all the way up to about 50 feet below my property. Now that's a span of about we put over 200 foot of pipe in there to correct the problem. But my issue, and we went to the Public Works Committee meeting in February and explained that all this was done on city property. It was 50 feet below my property line down to the street. And the project cost thousands of dollars, let me tell you. Luckily, the ground wasn't froze so we could get the job done. And Tom told us to go ahead and get it done. We did. So we came to the Public Works Committee in February and just checking out the rules, who's liable for this, because now this was on City Bluff line. This was not on my property. It's listed on the maps as a private sewer line, whatever that means. But, like I say, it was a big project. It's thousands of dollars. And I asked if the city could compensate in some way for that project. And I guess the Public Works Committee has said no compensation. But even though I took care of the bill, I would just want to make the fact that I think I went the extra mile on this, because when we were done with the project, we put straw matting, barriers. Guys spent 5.5 hours putting all this up. That was to protect my neighbors down below, the Holties and the Meglicks, from spring runoff. And I thought, well, if nothing else out of this project, maybe you could compensate me for that, because that is something the city would have had to do. But I just thought, as long as I was here for another issue, that I'd explain this to the council and see if they'd consider anything on that.
How much was that, John?
Well, I have a bill on the entire project, but I broke down the materials and the straw matting and the barriers that we put up there too.
So John, are you saying, I was at that
Yeah.
Public Works meeting.
Yeah.
Came a little late. You had just mentioned now that some of that was on city property.
The whole works.
So why didn't the city? I guess I don't know that I don't know. I wasn't involved in that part
Actually-
last December. But why didn't the city?
Actually, when this happened and we found, I had couple companies come in to clear out the problem, and they could only go down 200 feet or so, which was well beyond my property line, and they couldn't get, then they just hit a stone wall. Well, I called Tom, and he came up right away, and his guys came from the Main and Colville Street and started rootering it out. It was solid roots from Colville all the way up the hill. I suppose, excuse me, this had been going on for quite a while, and it finally reached a point where the whole thing backed up.
Yeah,
I had to rip up all the hill. And
but I guess
replace the
I guess I don't know why, if it's not on his private property,
Well, that's my question.
Yeah.
What's
Why-
the ordinance say
what-
about something like that?
which I wasn't aware of in February. That's why I'm asking the
Well, I've
question
heard
now.
talk of laterals and this and that, but what is the
I mean, I know that you have to get from your property to the city property
Mm-hmm.
to hook up. That's what has always historically been the case. So if it is not on your property, why were you responsible for hooking it up the rest
I'm
of the
sitting
way?
there on the 17th of December without a sewer. We never had a sewer at our house until the third week in January, and I'm not even on city water. I got a well up on top of the hill. So.
Could be another
Which
issue.
brings up another issue. Which brings up another issue. I've lived there for 11 years, and I'm paying $93 a month for sewer, and I don't even have a city water. Now, for 11 years, I've been paying $93 a month, and something like this happens. It's just a little frustrating that here we are on City Bluff line, and I'm putting in a whole sewer line that cost me thousands of dollars, which you can see by the bill. So what
But
is
if it
what,
wa-
what
if
does
it was-
the ordinance actually say?
When
on that?
I guess you guys can correct me, but if if the city was responsible of doing it, the cost probably would have been similar, and there would have been what would have had happened. I guess I wasn't aware of the full story, so I'm
Now, you
that's
did
why
come late to that meeting. I remember
that's
that.
why I'm asking,
Right.
and I apologize for not knowing, but and I know we have a letter from the attorney that says we're not responsible for the costs. But again, I wasn't aware it was on city property. So,
Problem was, 50 feet at least
And I-
below
and I
my
know
property
that-
line.
there's no records of showing or proof of how it got there, except for the story that it was McInerney's football team, whatever, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But, so I guess what you said tonight, for me, shows a different. I
I
don't have
gotta
answers.
commend Tom because he was right on the scene. He had his crew, and they augured up from the main Colville Street, probably up 40 feet or
But I guess my question is, who
90
told,
feet, and it was
who,
still all roots.
but who told you that it was your responsibility? Why wasn't the city brought into it?
I don't know. They said it's my private line, I guess, or something. But then again, that's why I'm bringing it up because it's all on City Bluff property.
At that time, Councilman Berg, there was no record on city mapping of that. We contacted the city attorney. At that time, we were really unclear there was no manhole structures. There was nothing that gave any appearance that it was a city main. At that point, it does go down into a city main at 8 inches at the manhole, but it's from that point to John's house at 6 inches. And there was no easements, no records of anything done. The only record we had at the time was what we were told by one of the excavators in town that was hand dug by the owner all the way down.
But are we still charging him sewer fees every month?
Yeah, well,
I mean, if we're charging him sewer fees, then that's our responsibility.
it's a
because
base sewer rate because he doesn't have a water meter because he doesn't have city water. So typically it ranges from about 40 to 120. It's all over the board as far as where cities are. I think the base is like $85 with some tax.
Yeah, I think it's a
Comes up like
$93
$90
total a month.
So that's an option we've discussed before.
And we've talked, if you concerned about, there's only two of us living in that house. If you're concerned about all my water usage, well, I'll get a meter from you and we'll check it out. You've asked me to do that, so.
Yeah,
But like I say, that's 11 years I've lived there and paying $93 a month, and now this happens, it's not even on my property, but. I guess what I'm asking is maybe you consider it, maybe there's some compensation there for it, so.
I think it's something that we need to readdress and look at it and see what we can do. I mean, we've got the invoice here, and I think it's something that we need to look at because you didn't know it was not documented. I mean, you thought you were hooked up to a city sewer.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys went and came in from the other way and started doing it because it was through a main. I mean, something's got to give here. I mean, because it wasn't even on his property line.
Right, we did it as a service, and we thought about it at the time, should we be doing that? Are we, liability-wise, should we be, typically everything we go in is 8 inches. Should we be going in a 6-inch line? We decided to do it and see what we can come up with on our end. And obviously, it has never been maintained because it was, like John said, it was solid roots through the years, so it hasn't been maintained by either party through that stretch.
Well, it happened on December 17th. The holidays coming up, we had to move on it because there wasn't any frost in the ground, but it still took a month and a week before we got it all figured out. So.
What was the total? Do you have the total on that, John?
The total is on there, and I've also wrote in there what it cost for the straw matting, and that's that total there with the straw matting and the barriers and actually put grass seed on there too.
Well, I would like to have this go back to the Public Works Committee, because I think, again, you brought up something that I hadn't heard before, and I think we just need to research it a little bit on our end.
We'll come to Public Works on that.
Yep.
So.
I think
Okay.
it just needs to go back to that.
Okay.
You got another copy of this? Or?
Yeah, you can keep that one.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks. Is there anybody else wishing to address the council under public input this evening? If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Items of this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For those folks at home, I'll read the consent agenda. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending April the 1st, 2016. Item B are the meeting minutes for the March 15th, 2016 City Council meeting. Item C, Resolution 2190, accepting a donation to the library in memory of Joan Roth. Item D, Resolution 2191, accepting a donation to the library in memory of Paul Schluter. Item E, Resolution 2192, accepting a donation to the library in memory of Esther Sinrick. Item F, Resolution 2193, in support of dedicated state funding for city streets. Item G, accepting resignation of reserve officer. Item H, approve community paramedic job description. Item I, approve community paramedic pay. Item J, hire Sherry Chirac for part-time community paramedic. Item K, set hearing to consider additional assessments. Are there any items anybody wishes to pull down this evening?
Oh, and then I would like to pull down the, and only for the public, explanation of this, because it's new and I think it's something we want to promote, is H, I, and J, or for the community paramedic, just to give a little background in regards to that, and why we're doing it. I think it's a great new service, and I think vocalizing it is a good idea.
Okay.
So it's not a question of moving forward, it's just more public information.
Okay. Any other items? Okay. Items H, I, and J will become items 8C, D, and E on the agenda. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? If not, the chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items H, I, and J.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Merle, second by Lynn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, that moves us on to council business this evening. Item A will be Spring Garden Road. Mr. Johnson.
And I will take that. As you can see, the memo is fairly lengthy, but I can probably cut to the chase on it. We had this discussion with John and Phyllis last year. It went to Public Works, and we realized after the fact, and it ultimately came to council with a recommendation, which really was kind of twofold. Either the council voted, and it was clearly our direction that was not clear, either to close Spring Road or make it a private drive, so it was really left unclear. At that particular meeting that council discussed it, staff we thought Althoffs had been invited to that meeting. Apparently they hadn't. So then we had met with John and Phyllis thereafter, looked at the road a little further, and I told them that I would not, we would not close it until they had a chance to come back to council to discuss it. So although it's taken a while, we're back here. In the meantime, I had spoken with our city attorney about potentially some options, and he did forward the statute on the minimum maintenance road to me, and that's included in your packet tonight. But our concern was that because the road is fairly rough and it does have a steep embankment on the one side in particular, that we're a little bit concerned about liability. And if someone would go down off the road and into the steep ditch, and the city attorney then said that in that minimum maintenance road statute, it does basically let us off there's a statement in there about liability, that the city is not liable. So I think that's a fair option for a resolution to the issue here. And specifically, the recommendation is to designate Spring Garden Road as a minimum maintenance road as per that statute from April 1st through October 31st, and designate it as closed from November 1st through March, I forgot to put the date, March 31st would be the date. That's the recommendation forwarded.
Okay. Was that, did the planning commission talk about this tonight, or?
No.
No.
We didn't have planning commission.
I mean, the public works?
no.
Nope, that wasn't on the agenda. Okay. I guess we'll open it up to you guys.
I guess my question is, why are we even closing the road at all? I mean, I grew up 2 blocks from that hill, and the road was never closed. And all of a sudden, before we moved up there 11 years ago, these gates were put in. That I can't understand to this day, too, because they really don't do any good. They were to close the road, and I guess the neighbors down below were complaining, at least in the wintertime, about snowmobiles and four-wheelers. And the gate isn't serving their purpose. The gates are closed, but all the snowmobiles are coming across my property, knocking over trees, and they get down the hill and go on the Titusdale's property to get around it. So I really don't feel the gates are even serving a purpose. That I guess I was going to ask tonight that why not leave the road open year long?
I think, well, I can address some of that, because I was on the council when they closed that. And it was when they closed the upper part of that road, access off of Highway 24.
25.
Or 25, I don't know. I just know where to go. I don't know the roads. And they closed that, and it was because of a number of issues and complaints that we had in regards to the usage of that road. And that since we had closed the other end of it, there was really no reason to keep the full road open anymore. And so it was based on safety and complaints, and that's why it was originally put those gates up as a closed road. And still have access to the resident that was up there. If my memory serves me right, that's what happened.
Yeah, the gates were put in before we moved up there.
Yep.
So I guess I was told later that was the reason, snowmobiles and
But
four-wheelers.
I mean, it wasn't about the snowmobiles so much as there was traffic of just running up and down the road, and also because of the closure on the other end of it, there was no real reason to have that full road open anymore.
Well, there isn't a lot of traffic on that road. I think it's mostly for us residents that live up there because, and if you complete 24 from 25 out to the east end of town, I don't know who in the world would use that road. Who wants to drive a half a mile on the gravel? Because the people from the southeast of town, Spring Garden area and all that, I think they're using it to go to school. But you're not going to have that issue anymore with 24 completed across there. There's not going to be any traffic on that road. That's why, granted, we'd go along with you opening, for that time period over the summer, but I can't see why that road couldn't be open all year long. At least after 24 is
The
completed.
tarred section from the Park Street to the top of the hill where we live, That's the section we want open all the time, or we are requesting that. It's been open, we're not aware of any safety issues on that road, or that there have been any issues on that road. And it's part of our history. We've been here our whole lives.
When you talk about the grade of the hill, it is steep.
But it's,
Believe me, Cedar Hills, we've checked out, is a steeper
Is
grade
steeper.
than that hill is.
Doesn't have the
bank,
the bank.
Yeah,
correct,
bank, yeah.
which is
Which
full
is
of
the issue.
trees as well. But, yeah.
Jeff, has there ever been any accidents or anything up there that you're aware of, or?
Actually, the only accidents that I know of, connected to that was when the bike race was using it. A couple of the bikes wiped out at the bottom. Altoffs are correct. I mean, when you look at grade, we've got a couple of other hills in town that are, comparable, although those are, a full width street. So they certainly have, more capacity as far as, correcting mistakes. I think, especially with 24 going through, the dynamics will probably shift as far as traffic patterns. I don't know at this point what exactly that'll be. I have to concur that there's not a lot of traffic on, that road. In the summertime, usually most of the traffic we get is actually on the gravel side, with kids going up there and doing things
ATVs
kids
and-
do.
Yeah.
Where, if it's a through road, that would give Altoffs the option if, it was rainy and they didn't want to go down the paved portion, they could go out the other side. Where now, at least from what I've seen, it sort of swings. It's either one way or the other. There's not that ongoing choice.
We just find it odd also that we drive into the township down a half-mile gravel road to get to our city residence, which is 4 blocks from downtown.
That's just why anybody coming to use the road,
Yeah.
why do they want to drive down a gravel road when you got 25 coming into town, and now you'll have 24 going to the east of town? There'd be no reason for anybody to use that road, in my opinion.
I think one of the
Gravel
things
portion.
that would be, possible to do with this, if council still chooses to make this a minimum maintenance road, would be maybe to sign the full stretch, no through traffic, something like that, just to, help cut down if we do see a lot of traffic, if Altoffs are, saying, hey, there's a bunch of traffic up here. It would give us something to utilize for more enforcement.
Or
and
even, or you
otherwise.
could close the top
Yep.
gate at the gravel all
Yeah.
the time, except maybe in the heavy winter, giving us the option to go out the other way if the road hasn't gotten plowed yet, the tarred section.
Now, there is one other residence up there, and I don't believe they're here tonight, but, just something for council to be aware of. There is one other.
And if the residents below are complaining about the snowmobiles, four-wheelers, I think that's a real
That's-
law enforcement issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's-
Road
You
closure.
give a few tickets, I don't think
We-
you're going to have a problem there.
Yeah, I mean, we get the complaints not relative to any individual road, that's just, usually it's an ongoing issue because of just a few drivers of recreational vehicles with bad behavior.
And I think in the last 11 years that we've been there, it has really received very little maintenance. It has been treated as a low-maintenance road. I've jotted down every time tar was added in the last 5 years, there's been 2 years that some potholes and tar has been added. So it hasn't been, and I've, in my walking, have cleaned the road. I've dragged branches, I've done a lot of that. We even hired a company 2 years ago that cut a lot of the brush along the side that was dead and hanging and cleaned it up. So we've been helping with that road.
Well, Tom, you put that overlay on there about 2 years ago, and that's really held up well.
2014.
And other than that, it's just been filling a few potholes now and then. so.
Yeah, so it hasn't received a ton of maintenance, and we're okay with that.
Well, I should give you a little history. Back in 05, 06, and 07, when we first moved up there, the city allowed Hinch's and his construction crew
Yes.
to park in that hill.
All that construction.
And that didn't do that hill any good. They had all their heavy equipment. I had piles of crushed rock and sand and debris,
broke
and they
up
cleaned
that
it up
hill.
pretty well. And I turned my back on it, but
They
they
left-
wrecked some limestone formations up on
They
that
also
hill,
left
and
big
I'm sure that's
dip-
not helped the maintenance of that hill at all. That's a story a couple years ago, but it didn't help the road at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd at least like to have it open for the summer, like you say, April 1st to March 31st.
And I'd kind of like, I would also request
April
that
1st
that be a
to November 1st.
guideline, not set in stone, because typically there isn't a lot of snow until December.
Yeah.
If, when it closes November 1st, could be 30 days of beautiful weather yet.
Yeah.
And so I'd like it as a guideline.
And then maybe get the option of opening it all year long, too.
When I read the statutes in it for the minimal maintenance and stuff, I mean, if we set it as that, then we have to follow the statutes, is that correct?
Yeah, I would, if we're going to designate it as such by that statute, we'd be following that statute.
Right, and that
Other
statute specifically says the dates that it can be open.
The statute does not, I don't believe.
Oh, I thought it did. Maybe I misread that.
Did it?
Maybe it was your memo I read that in, so.
It says per Minnesota statute, it would have to be closed at that time.
I don't think so, because I was just going to suggest that if you wanted to leave it as a minimum maintenance road, the liability is taken away, period, from the,
Okay,
for 12 months even.
okay. So we could,
Yeah, the statute doesn't define when minimum maintenance roads have to be.
Then that was
open
in the
or
memo.
closed. That was
Memo.
just within the memo.
That was in the
part.
memo,
Okay.
okay.
The statute itself, if you designated a minimum maintenance, that in itself is a year-round designation.
okay.
And then you can, as council, make a decision if you wanted any further restrictions. But statute doesn't define them.
And we're willing to work with Public Works on that.
So we can make it minimum maintenance and leave it open
Yes.
Yes,
year-round,
yes, you certainly could have that option.
unless we decided we had a horrible winter and wanted
And
to
we're
go.
willing to work with the city on that as well.
I'm willing to shut the gate. I can tell when it's icy or whatever, I'll shut the gate for you.
Make a motion?
Yep.
I will make a motion to make it a minimum maintenance road, open year-round.
I'll second.
I guess the only clarification that would be helpful in looking at the statute and the council discussion would be relative to snow.
Yeah.
During the summer months, it's not going to be an issue, but in the winter months, would that be something that would be maintained or not maintained? Again, statute provides you to decide what maintenance you would do on it.
You plow the
Well,
gravel all the
you
way.
you plow the gravel, you could plow the hill, couldn't we?
That would be my concern is with the springs and everything, my concern would be maybe like the November, March times when it's seeping, the springs are weeping.
Well,
As far as,
Yeah.
I'll make it in discretion of the Public Works of the maintenance.
I think that would be fair.
Okay. Any other questions of us?
Not right this second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table to declare Spring Garden Road as a minimum maintenance road per the statute, keeping it open year-round, but during the winter months or spring months, leaving it at the discretion of Public Works as to closing the road due to weather and maintenance. Can I have a second?
Yep.
I have a second by Rod. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item B, the Cannon Valley Fair Association request agreement. Ron?
Thank you. The Public Works Commission did handle this again tonight, and the agreement that you have in front of you, after discussion, was modified only in the sentence, the first whereas, where it says, whereas the association holds a fair in the city 4 days each year. That was modified to say, holds a fair in the city a minimal number of days each year. A minimal number of days each year.
And the reason for changing that was it allows the fair board to hold additional, sometimes the fair runs longer than the 4 days. It's a 5-day fair based on when it falls. And also, if they were to hold additional activities during the summer, such as a harness race, it would allow them some of the flexibility in regards to that. So you're not limiting them, but we're also containing the number, not to a specific number, but just knowing that it's only going to be probably 4 months out of the year it can be used, minimal amount of activity will probably be happening there. So that was the only change that we made.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay. If there's no other discussion on this, the chair will take a motion to approve the agreement with the Cannon Valley Fair Association regarding the association's installation of a water meter and the related connection to the city sanitary sewer system.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Motion by Lynn and a second by Merle. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That moves us on to item C, which is the approve the community paramedic job description.
Yeah, and I brought that down just so that you could explain a little bit more, Tim, in regards to what that position is, why the pay is just a little bit different, in the because we had you create a job description, very well done, by the way, and what the benefit brings to the city in regards to that, and then just a little bit about Sherry and why she is going to be taking that part-time position, if you wouldn't mind, please.
So before I really start into this was well under the way before I started. I got hired, and Ron and Robbie were like, "What do you know about community paramedics?" And I said, "Well, not much." So Ron sent me to Iowa, and I learned about community paramedics because our medical director was actually speaking at a state conference down there about it. Brenda Wojciech has been very involved from the beginning of this, getting this ball going with Mayo Clinic Health Systems in Cannon Falls. And since then, I got on board. We worked along with Sherry. The three of us met with her quite regularly. And Dr. Wilcox also was with us a few times. And the Community Paramedic Program is bridging the gap in healthcare for people currently right now that are Medicaid-only people, and they don't have as many services as other people do with commercial insurance or Medicare. And so the community paramedic is able to go out into these people's homes and bridge that care between the clinic and their house, and pretty much is able to go there, relay their findings back to the physician, and they can correct medications and just overall better disease management for these patients, trying to keep them out of the hospital. Also, they have a role in trying to keep them, if somebody came to the ER, they go out and try to prevent them from coming back if they have some higher risk conditions. The community paramedic, I can't speak on the exact hours because I don't have that in front of me. It is quite a detailed training that's involved. It's in addition to the paramedic training, and there's quite a bit of clinical time before they're able to be certified. Once that's all completed, then they are able to function underneath the medical director's license in that service. But it's a whole different animal per se, because there's a lot more training involved. It usually takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to get through it. So the job description just more or less reflects that they're not only a paramedic, but they have additional training to do the community paramedic work. And then Sherry, on the separate side, Sherry's been with the ambulance service for quite a while. She's paid on calls. So we pay her very minimal, and she helps us, fill the schedule. But obviously, she has the additional training. She gained that all on her own. There was no cost to the city for that training she took, and we just want to make sure she's compensated for the work she does for us.
Well, I think it's a great service that we're adding to Cannon Falls, and so I commend you for moving forward with all of that. And I just wanted the community to get a better idea of what this whole program is about.
Yep.
So thank you.
I mean, they did a lot of work in getting us going. We are the only community in the Mayo system that has the community paramedic program, so if they do well, it may expand to other cities.